thank you for bearing with us. Okay, if you've got just the sign and the reference, then you're going to have problems with signs that are meaning but don't refer. And the thing with informativeness is a little bit subtler, but remember, we've got to have a notion of some identities being uninformative and some identities being informative. This is very important. Any kind of inference that you make, any kind of reasoning that you engage in about a particular thing, you're going to need to have a difference between this kind of argument, which is valid, invalid, invalid, right? The morning star is F, the evening star is G, so the morning star is both F and G. That needs an extra premise to make it valid, right? Whereas this one doesn't need an extra premise. So if you're going to engage in reasoning like this, then you need the distinction between this kind of identity, where you can just exploit that identity in your reasoning, that this refers to the same thing as this, and this one where you can't be exploiting the identity. So it's going to be very important for any account of just ordinary thinking about, there's some person you know well, you listen to lots of gossip about this person, you put together all these bits of gossip as all being about one and the same thing. But then, remember this kind of case, if you think the reference is fixed by a causal connection, how can you be, how could it ever be uninformative that the person you're talking about here is the same as the person you're talking about there? And in this case, you've got the sign the morning star here and the sign the morning star there. But if what's fixing the reference is a causal chain, then the causal chain back from this sign might be different to the causal chain back from that sign. The causal chain back from this photo might be different to the causal chain back from that photo. Therefore, you can never have this kind of identity where it's uninformative to be told it's the same thing, where it's really a truth of logic that this sign is referring to the same thing as that one. That can't be. But once we let things get to this point, once this much has happened, this actually bears on your knowledge of your own mind. It bears on your knowledge of when you're thinking about the same thing again, when you're having the same thought again. And that's the thing about the story of Spot, that there's the domain of your mind over which you're authoritative. But if you're one of the children in this unfortunate family, then you think you're having thoughts about the same dog. You think you're having thoughts of the same dog over all these years, but actually you're not. Your thoughts are shifting from one dog to another, even though you don't know about it. So you don't know when you're having the same thought again. You're not authoritative about when you're having the same thought again. And that really seems strange. If I think something that I know what I'm thinking, and if I think the same thing twice, then I should know that. That's where Descartes began, right? I have authority over which thoughts I'm having. And Putnam's examples are just putting that point to work for natural kinds. Names for natural kinds, I mean, one way to put what Putnam says is names for natural kinds are like proper names the way Kripke describes them. They're never have a reference fixed by a description, because for any description you give, you can have things that fit the description but aren't of that kind. If you say, well, water is stuff that looks like this, you can always find stuff that looks like that but is not water. So when you shift from Earth to twin Earth, what is happening is that the thing at the end of the causal chain is changing, but you don't know about that. So you don't have authority over which thoughts you're having. Let me just pause. I'll come back to those last points in a second. I'm sorry, it's also very strange to have this metallic echo. But at some point I might just switch this off. But are you comfortable with that? That's really everything we've done so far, coming together there. Can you put your hand up if you're perfectly comfortable with everything I just covered? That's pretty good. Okay, it's by no means all, but it's not bad. Okay, this is your chance to say if you're not comfortable with anything there. Okay, the thing about the Isaac Bashevis Singer story is that with the story of Spot and with Putnam's examples, you have people who think they're having the same thoughts, but actually they're having different thoughts. The Isaac Bashevis Singer story, where the man who's walked for several miles, hundreds of miles, returns back to his own village thinking he's great distances away from his hometown, is that he's having just the same thoughts. When he looks at the woman who is in fact his wife and says, you have brown hair, he's actually having the same thought as he had when he was back in his own village, back originally. But he thinks it's different. So although he thinks the thoughts are different, they're not. But actually, this is not an entirely imaginary example. There are people who have just this syndrome of duplicative paramnesics, who get back from the hospital, get to their home, and say, you know, my God, this apartment looks just like my apartment. The resemblance is uncanny. They meet their spouse, and they say, you know, you look just like my wife. It's very strange that two people can be so similar as you two. And say, no, but I am your wife. And they say, no, don't be so ridiculous. Of course you're not my wife. That really is a clinical condition. And people in that condition will remark on the amazing similarities, but just not believe it's the same thing. So there again, you have people who may be thinking the very same thoughts that they have all along, but think those thoughts are different. So a causal theory of reference really affects your picture of the mind. It says, what's in your mind is actually constituted by the kind of world you're embedded in. The mind is not something independent of the world. I hope you're not frightened by the microphone. That's not why I'm not getting the usual storm of protest. Yeah?
Might at first the person be having a thought like the person in front of me's hair is brown and the person in front of me is my wife, then later the thought would be just the person in front of me's hair is brown, like, and not necessarily have the afterthought or before thought it's my wife also, so they are having two different thoughts.
Right.
They are having the same thought, which is the person in front of me, their hair is brown. Like that thought remains the same.
Right.
But it's just a separate thought that person is their wife that is untrue.
Okay, so there are different ways you could play this. So what they're thinking is the person in front of me is my wife. Is that the same thought both times?
No, they don't happen to have that thought the second time. The
Right.
singer wouldn't have that thought.
But when he's back home, he is thinking the person in front of me has brown hair. Isn't he?
Like, well, yeah. I mean, I guess you think like more specifically, you have brown hair.
You have brown hair.
So my wife.
Right.
And when he comes back, it's just
Yeah.
brown hair.
Right, so are those different thoughts? Those really are different thoughts. That's what you're saying. I was saying it's like if we have the same thoughts. But you're saying no, there has to be different thoughts.
No, I'm saying think you were saying that they have the same thought, but think that they're different thoughts.
That's right. That's what I was saying in this kind of case.
Yeah, I think that I think they are having the same thought. No, I think that they are having the same thought.
They're about different people. Actually, probably, it suddenly comes back to me, this is what we talked about last time. They are different people he's thinking about, so how can it be the same thoughts?
But it's not different people. If he returns to the village and he's talking about his wife, but he doesn't think it's his wife. He's saying you have your own. Oh, the
But
village
it-
thinks it's different people.
Right.
So he thinks he'll be having different thoughts.
Right.
But he's having the same.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, like, it seems to me very possible, but if you didn't say this person has brown hair, you're saying
Yeah.
this person in front of you now has brown hair.
Yeah.
And you're talking to you at the time. So
That's right, yeah.
So then you run into, like, you could still have, in order to have the same exact thought, you have to constitute the same exact context.
Okay. That's right. If you make it very demanding, you can say actually they have different thoughts. Yeah. But the thing is, just as we talk right now, yeah, I might have a string of thoughts about you. I think, well, the point you're raising is this, and this connects with the point you made last week. Did you hear what I mean? Right? So you have a whole bunch of thoughts just live in real time as we talk. Now, if the split-second distinctions between one moment and the next make it different thoughts, then I'm never going to be able to put together this kind of inference. You see what I mean? Because every time a moment passes, I'm suddenly in this situation, where for all I know it's a different person. The identity is informative, right? But if I'm going to do this in real time, think and reason about you and what you're saying in real time, I've got to assume I can make this kind of inference. Yeah? So we've got to be relaxed enough about when an identity is uninformative that can happen. Yeah, otherwise life would be impossible, right? Because I've got to keep establishing that you're the same person from moment to moment. And life's too short, it doesn't work like that. So yeah, we can make a move, but the prices can be very high. Yeah. I'm sorry about the microphone. I find this very difficult to contend with. Are you finding this okay? Yes, that's all right? Okay. Okay, well, it's all right for you, that's right. Okay, well, are you now all comfortable with this? Okay. Well, as I said, there's a different line of thought in Putnam's article, but it's actually a very important line of thought too. The causal thing is important, but this is important too. The general question he's raising in this article is, does the psychological state fix reference? Does what goes on in your mind determine what you're talking about? And the answer he's giving is no, because in Earth, or in twin Earth, you have people whose minds are in the very same states, but they're talking about different things. The thing is, there are much simpler examples than gold or water that Putnam could have used. Suppose you consider you and your counterpart on twin Earth. Suppose you use the word here, and your counterpart on twin Earth uses the word here. Are you in the same psychological state? You're molecule for molecule identical? Putnam is saying, yes, you're just the same feelings and sensations. That was the point of the example, that you and your twin are in just the same psychological state. But when you say here, are you referring to the same place as your counterpart is referring to? No, clearly not. Clearly not, right? Hello? Okay, you're referring to Earth, somewhere around Earth. Your counterpart is miles away. Is that got anything to do with causal theories of reference? Well, when it's used by one of them, it's referring to a place on Earth. It's used by the others, referring to a place in twin Earth. But that's not because of a causal chain. It's just because there is some rule like this. Here refers to the place the speaker is at. That's how the reference of this term is fixed. Yep.
But wouldn't here also have deal with a causal chain? Because the only way to get here is to go through this causal chain of being born and then come through life and then here. That was causal chain.
The speaker has to be produced by a causal chain. That's right. But which place here refers to, it doesn't matter where you're born. Right? It's just wherever you happen to be when you produce that sign here. That's what the sign refers to. A causal theory says, it doesn't say anything about the speaker having to be born and go through go through all the tribulations of an ordinary life. It's just, the causal theory says what place you're referring to has to be causally connected to the sign. But there doesn't have to be any causal connection between you and the place for you to be referring to it. I mean, suppose I've been blindfolded, kidnapped, shoved in the back of a van and driven for miles, right? So I'm basically, and then put into a sensory deprivation tank. Right? So I have no causal connection to the place around me. I don't know anything about it, right? It isn't impacting on me at all that it's this place rather than any other. But when I say, I wonder what it's like here, or I wish I wasn't here, whatever that is, right? Then I'm still referring to the place where I actually physically am, even though I'm not causally connected to it. So it's just this rule that does the work. Some terms are governed by a systematic rule, and the rule means that what they refer to varies with the context. The causal chains don't come into it. Yeah? So that's a very simple example Putnam could have used to make his point, much less complex than these water and gold cases. There wouldn't have been quite so much blood and thunder about it. I mean, it wouldn't have seemed quite such a dramatic conclusion. If Putnam had said, yes, well, suppose Oscar says here and Oscar on twin Earth says here, they're referring to different places. But the point would be incontrovertible, right? Because of this kind of rule. Now, the thing is, when Putnam's explaining what's going on with the words like water or gold, he puts it in terms that make it seem like it's just this kind of rule that's doing the work and not a causal connection at all. Here's what he says. He says, water is stuff that bears a certain similarity relation to the water around here. And then the point is, when Oscar 1 and Oscar 2 talk about the stuff around here, what they refer to by here is a different place. So the stuff they're referring to is different. It's because of this simple point about here, you're getting the difference in reference of water on Earth and water on twin Earth. Causal chains have nothing to do with it in this analysis. The other analysis is, the guy on Earth is causally interacting with one substance, the guy on twin Earth is causally interacting with a different substance. That's the reading I gave last time. That's the Kripkean interpretation of Putnam. But if you look carefully at what he says, a lot of it has got nothing to do with causal connections. It's this thing about this kind of rule governing the world. So all that's happening is that if you think of the general symptoms of being water that are the same on Earth as on twin Earth, what's really going on is the rule is water is stuff that bears a certain similarity relation to the stuff around here. There's characteristics S1 and S4, S1 to S4. So the word water is being used in just the same way on Earth as on Twin Earth. It's being used, just as here is being used subject to the same rule on Earth as on Twin Earth. The word water is being used subject to the same rule on Earth as on Twin Earth. And it's just because that word here figures in the rule that you're getting that difference in what they refer to. So that's an almost trivial reading of what's going on. That's the reading that Putnam highlights. Yeah. Okay. And then it's the fact that the underlying structure is what explains why the stuff around here is S1 to S4. And that underlying structure is different in the two cases. That's how come the structure you're referring to is different in the two cases. So this is not a causal theory. What fixes reference isn't the fact that there's a causal chain from the substance to the use of the word water. That's what the causal theory says. It's a causal chain from the substance to your talk about it that fixes reference. In this reading, Putnam saying psychological state doesn't fix reference just because of that point about here, that the here refers to somewhat different than as on Twin Earth. That's the basic point. Okay, so I just mentioned that as an alternative reading of what Putnam is doing. So your task is to look again at the Putnam and see which reading you think is correct, and which gives the right analysis of the situation.
Adding you around here seems to help with Earth and Earth, but like
Yeah.
say it's not an alternate world, but like it's here on this Earth. Like there's
Yes.
some remote part of this Earth where they have X, Y, Z, and that's the feeling sort of like water they have access to. And we probably wouldn't say that just because it refers to like the liquid with these characteristics around here that their word water is the same as our word water. Like we probably wouldn't do that.
Do that again. Speak into the microphone.
If we had basically a sort of like twin Earth enclave on Earth, like
Yes.
a country where, not in like some alternate world, but in this world where there's X, Y, Z instead of water, we wouldn't say that just because their word water refers to the liquid bearing these characteristics around here, that that word is the same as our word water, referring to, actual
Very
water.
good. Is this a way to put it? If you think of the way the word here works, the fact that here refers to different places when it's used on different occasions, you don't have to go as far away as Twin Earth to make that point. Right? If I just say, can you hear me here? If I stand here, can you hear me if I stand over here? Right? Then you see the reference shifting every day. Right? So your question is, does water actually work like that? Would we ever get the reference of the word water shifting from context to context on Earth? Yeah, the way it does with here. And you're saying it doesn't? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So even if there is a location where there's plenty of X, Y, Z around, and maybe not any H2O, the word water wouldn't shift its reference. Is that right? Yeah. So if the causal chain stayed the same.
I think that's really clear.
Really? Okay. Maybe I could play it. Right. So that is. So if you say that's the rule, right, that gives you a different prediction than the causal theory. The causal theory says it's whatever is causing you to use the word water, and that's not going to shift just because you moved from place to place. Yeah. Okay. So that's where the two theories come apart. And this theory looks wrong then, as an account of the way the word water works in English.
Or at least the way we treat, I guess, translations from place to place.
I think everything you say is powerful and convincing, except that last thing about translations from place to place. I didn't understand that.
Usually we don't go into another country and go, oh, well, like, now all the words have to be referring to all sorts of different things.
Right.
Like, we sort of assume that there can be sort of like even transitions that we're referring to, the same things. Like,
That's right.
yeah.
I mean, you don't mean when you go to a different country because they're speaking a different language. What you mean is if you just go to a different place,
Yeah.
that doesn't. If you are traveling with a group of English speakers or speakers of the same language, and you just move to another place in your little bubble of Anglophones, then all the references of your words stay the same. The references of words like here shift, but the references of words like water and gold and so on do not shift. Okay? But this theory predicts they should shift because the words water and gold are tied to here. Yeah. So Putnam's theory is wrong, and he should have had the causal theory all along. I think that's absolutely correct. I think that's exactly the reason why Putnam's theory why this theory is wrong. You don't be very convinced yourself, but I find that extremely convincing. Yeah.
In this different place on Earth that you guys are talking about here,
Yeah.
now this conversation, does water actually have a different molecular structure, or are you guys just talking about the limited grants in the water there?
I think the idea was that it may have a different structure. So consider the case in which you travel to, I don't know, Utah, say, and the stuff in the rivers and lakes there is just not the same chemical composition. Yeah, it says X, Y, Z. Yeah. Then the reference of your term water does not shift.
Why? It should if you stay there long enough and only deal with that water, right? It would be just like visiting another planet.
Oh, the causal theory says if you stay there long enough, the reference will shift. That's right. But this theory says the word water is tied to the word here. And when you travel to Utah and say it's very different here, right, the reference of your word here has shifted immediately. I mean, if I just moved from here to here, look, you try this yourself. The reference of the word shifts immediately. It's not that I have to spend a few years over here, getting to know the place before the reference of my word shifts. Right? But it is like that with water. The reference of your word is going to shift